coming to you from the Hudson Media Group studio. This is Talking Politics, and I am New Jersey's premier journalist, top 100 Latino via the Latino Spirit Online magazine, and the sworn enemy of all the local toxic progressives, social justice clowns, and woke fools in Hudson County, Fernando Uribe. Hope you've all had a wonderful week. Happy Halloween in advance to you all. It's that spooky time of year, folks. It's my favorite. But of course, politics always remains scary, whether it's in Hudson County, New Jersey, or even nationally, so there's always a lot to talk about. So let's get started. Here's what I'm thinking about right now. Folks, the Progressive Democrats of Hudson County continue to be an insufferable group. I've been picking on them forever because, quite frankly, they deserve it. Some of their antics and tactics online, on social media, and even in person tend to make them very unlikable. And of course, they can't help themselves, but certainly provide endorsements during the upcoming Jersey City elections, both in the mayoral race and, of course, for the pursuit of seats on the city council. But listen, I'm all for everyone being involved in the political process. The problem is that, of course, like anything, I want you to know what you're talking about when you come to the table. Now, let me preface this by saying that many of you out there enjoy my conservative commentary. I'm one of the few conservative journalists out there providing opinion journalism on a consistent basis, not just on this great program, but also with my podcast with Insider NJ, and of course also with Talking the Hudson. But of course, like anything else, folks, I have to come at you every week with facts. I just can't be overly emotional. But one of the things that really bothers me about progressive Democrats, especially in Hudson County, is the fact that they're overly emotional. And that sort of clouds their inability, or their judgment at least, to come to the table with some sort of facts on their side. Whether it's about economics, which, as you know, whenever you listen to any of their commentary, or whenever they're giving a press conference, or giving out a press release, or doing something on social media, you know that somewhere along the line they failed Economics 101. Or, for example, when they talk about science, like biology. All right, as we all know, there's only two genders, but somehow in this woke climate that we're living in, we have to believe that there's 25 genders. There isn't, folks. You're reminding us all that you're grown-ass men and women, and somehow you failed basic courses that you should have done pretty well in, let's say during your high school years, much less during college or any other advanced studies. But of course, I've taken them all to task because, as always, they like to become this sort of leading crusader on whatever cause is the flavor of the week. And as always, I like to remind people that when it comes to progressives, yes, they claim to say that their heart's in the right place, but as always, and I've proven time and time again, their heads are up their asses. And you know what? During this council election season, even during the mayoral race, it's interesting when you see organizations like the Working Families Alliance, or again, Progressive Democrats of Hudson County, or for example, the Democratic Socialists chapters that permeate throughout the state. Folks, I'm sorry, I'm not going to take any of these organizations seriously. They try to come at you with these bleeding heart causes and, everything's peachy, or we should be, loving each other. Folks, life isn't nice. And I don't claim to be a nice guy on this show or my other programs. What I'm here to do is to tell you the truth. What I'm here to do is to tell you exactly what you need to hear. Because let's be honest, when it comes to the liberal media apparatus here in the state of New Jersey, well, there aren't a lot of good options. Let me see, NJTV, yeah. Have you seen David Cruz lately? Uncle Dave, if he's not bitching and moaning about his New York Mets or their ineptitude on Twitter, what else of substance can he bring to the table? You ever watch his interviews? They're as boring as watching anything on CNN or MSNBC. Or for example, Tommy Boy, Tom Moran, the head editorialist at the Star-Ledger. Well, that's another, virtue signaling, white woke guy who, can't decide whether he wants soy milk or almond milk when he goes to his local Starbucks in Montclair. Or for example, you know what, and I might get in some trouble for this, but even some of my colleagues at Insider NJ, we got Maxi Pizarro, Max Pizarro, the editor, who of course likes to write good columns, and he does, I'll give him his due. He's a very good writer. But when it comes to his political IQ, well, you should stay away from that. And of course, lastly, we have Jay Lassiter, little JJ, also with Insider NJ, who's unbelievably talented as a writer. But when you listen once again to his political IQ, yeah, folks, you just don't want to be anywhere near that, again, for fear of osmosis. But again, why am I mentioning all these names and why am I sort of throwing shade at them? Well, because they're all doing a disservice to you, to readers, to viewers, and even to those who consume social media. When you come out there and try to provide what's good journalism, well, it gets clouded by the fact that, again, your political IQs aren't very good. And I'm not saying mine is the best, but what I come to the table with, ladies and gentlemen, is a political IQ that's at least more well thought out. Now, I get it. I'm conservative. That might rub some people the wrong way. But folks, when it comes to economics, when it comes to sort of everyday commonsensical science, you know what? I tend to be on the side of those things. Now, that might rub some people the wrong way. That might make me smug, arrogant, or cocky, or even having a smart mouth. You know what? All of those things are true. But what you can't deny is I'm at least intellectually honest with all of you, my viewers, my listeners, every single week. And that's all we can do as journalists, is to do the best job we can to be honest, to be objective, and to at least bring the facts to the table. And again, let me circle back to progressive Democrats. And this is where they lose a lot of regular, everyday working people. When they come at you with their virtue signaling or how to be more woke than the day before. Folks, at the end of the day, we're living in a country where food is more expensive, gas is more expensive, everything is more expensive. Now, of course, as I tell people every day on social media, at least you're not seeing mean tweets anymore, right? Well, things should be better. Well, they're not. You could probably blame progressive Democrats for that because, again, progressives tend to think that, hey, their policy prescriptions are great or that their heart's in the right place. Folks, I've said it before, I've said it again. Their heart's not in the right place. It just isn't. Their heads are up their asses, and consistently we see that. Whether it's endorsements, whether it's their antics. Folks, again, I will simply go back to when County Executive Tom DeGees was getting harassed at his home in the Jersey City Heights because a bunch of grown men and women could not have constructive dialogue and decided to go harass him outside of his home, even during late hours. Is that something that adults do? Is that something that you want to do to try to move the political needle? I'm sorry, you're not going to win me over with antics like that. And when you keep having meltdowns or taking jabs at people on social media, well, individuals like yours truly aren't going to stay quiet. I'm going to speak up. I'm going to speak out against these toxic forces and call them out, as I've always done, for the frauds that they continue to be. That's what I'm thinking about right now.
Did you know Jersey City was one of the first in the country to take action on the coronavirus?
Face masks mailed to everyone.
The first to offer free COVID testing.
And Mayor Fulop also got direct cash relief to help residents pay rent and small businesses stay open. Now he's working to vaccinate as many residents as possible, with vaccine centers in every neighborhood and free Uber rides for seniors. Steve Fulop is my kind of mayor.
In the latest edition of the 5-time award-winning podcast, Talking to Hudson, which you can listen to every week via www.blogtalkradio.com/talkingtohudson, was the founder and publisher of the Jersey City Times, Aaron Morrill. And we spoke for over an hour on a variety of different topics, and here are some highlights for your consideration. Election day is only a few days away, and we broke down some of the most interesting council races in Jersey City. Let's see what Aaron had to say about it.
It's almost looking like, because of being on the mayor's ticket, that Council President Waterman has a very good chance to get reelected, as well as Daniel Rivera. I can't say the same for Rolando Lavarro. I'm not trying to be mean, but it seems like someone like Rolando Lavarro, who's an incumbent, is running for his political life in 13 days. Is that fair to say?
Well, I think obviously Mayor Fulop has shown that he has coattails. I don't know that, his success will rise or fall on his merits or on the merits of any of the other candidates, unfortunately. Team Fulop obviously has a massive amount of money compared to everybody else, and they're sending out mailers, and they've got signs everywhere, and name recognition, counts for an awful lot. I think Lavarro has been making a very, very strong, articulate case for his brand of politics and for the reason why he thinks he should be, reelected as now an opposition, an independent candidate or councilman. And but whether he can get that message out with the remaining time is an open question. I will note, and you probably saw this, he put out an advertisement or a video, which is extremely innovative and fun. I just took a look at it. It's on another website, and he did a great job. Working with not a lot of money, he came up with something that's super effective, I think. People should go check it out. If it can go viral, if he can, if he can get people to see it, if he can get eyeballs, maybe it'll make a little bit of a difference. But yeah, I mean, Fulop has tremendous coattails. He's a force of nature, politically, and I think it's going to be tough for all of them. We've talked about this before. Nothing new, I think it does seem like there's a real street fight, taking place in Ward F, and to a lesser degree in Ward E. We had a really interesting, series of events last week, in particular with a flyer that went out, an anonymous flyer attacking Frank Gilmore, bringing up the fact that he, as a young man, as a teenager, got arrested for drug sale and went to jail. That's no secret. Everybody knows that because he's made that part of his story. But somebody who didn't want to disclose who they were put out a very expensive cardstock glossy flyer under the windshield wipers of hundreds, if not thousands, of cars in Ward F, that looked like a rap sheet and made Frank Gilmore look like a criminal. It was pretty bare knuckles politics, from what I understand, not legal if that's campaign money being used where they're not identifying the source. So it was a sign that there's definitely concern in Ward F that Gilmore has traction, and it may have actually helped Gilmore in the end because it got people so angry. But we will see. Gilmore also had an issue with his COVID vaccination the week before, so Gilmore's been in the news a lot. It's been kind of a crazy it's been a crazy campaign over there in Ward F. And then I interviewed Vernon Richardson last week. I will put that interview up shortly. He's a thoughtful candidate. He assured me that he is not a spoiler and a shill for Team Fulop. That's what he's telling me. A lot of people thought he might be, but he did seem quite serious when I talked to him. He's got a lot of experience as assistant to Michael Youn, the late great Michael Youn, and he's an interesting person. So Ward F is a very interesting race, actually.
Yeah.
And as is the at-large race.
It really is. It really, really is. And your breakdown, as always, is very, very succinct, and I appreciate that.
Secondly, we discussed a very thorough article that was just published on the Jersey City Times website, which once again you can check out at www.jcitytimes.com. And it was a story about a revow that once Mayor Fulop took office for his first term in 2013, well, apparently this revow wasn't done correctly. And subsequently, it ended up costing a lot of residents in Jersey City thousands upon thousands of extra dollars when it came to property taxes. Now, it's a very thorough article. You can find it on their website, but Aaron went into it in detail and talked about why this is such a polarizing story leading up to what the mayor is trying to do, and that's ultimately win a third term as the mayor of Hudson County's largest city. Let's hear what Aaron had to say about it.
I could tell you about, the most important article I've ever written that I dropped yesterday. You want to hear about that?
As a matter of fact, I was just going to ask you about that because I did notice the article you were referencing, and for our audience here, how the mayor stuck wards A, B, C, and D with $143 million in taxes. I read this morning. I was glossing over because I was getting ready for tonight's debate, but I also wanted to make sure I did my homework for you today with your appearance. But wow, this is a damning piece here, Aaron. Give us a little more perspective here about what prompted you to write this article and how'd you gather the data for it.
Well, the revow saga has been something that has bugged me for 8 years, ever since the mayor canceled the revow that Healy had begun. It's been something that has stuck in my craw, and I have wanted to write about. I've wanted people to know more about it because before I started Jersey City Times, it was one of these things that I talked about with my friends and people who were interested in politics as just a profoundly unfair and indeed immoral act by the mayor. And so it's been sort of sitting there in my consciousness for quite a few years.
Once again, you can listen to the episode in its entirety by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/talkinghudson. The episode is available from any PC, Mac, smartphone, or tablet, and you can listen to it anywhere at any time. Certainly, these are exclusives I'll continue to bring you every single week on Blog Talk Radio. Now, some local stories for your consideration. Let's start off in the Moscow city of Hoboken, where, folks, it breaks my heart to tell you, but great story by John Hines with the Hudson County View, talking about former state assemblyman out of Hoboken, Carmelo Garcia, also an ex-Newark official, was recently indicted along with two Brick City businessmen for allegedly soliciting corrupt payments in exchange for helping them acquire and redevelop properties, according to acting U.S. Attorney Rachel Honig. Now, let me just give you some more details here, which really outlines why this story is so tragic. Now, Carmelo Garcia, resident out of Hoboken, along with Frank Balvano out of Florham Park, and Erwin Soblaski of Springfield, who are co-owners of a New Jersey-based pawnbroker and jewelry business, have been charged with one count of conspiracy to defraud the city of Newark and the NCEDC of Garcia's honest services facilitated by the use of interstate wire transmissions. Now, 17 counts of honest services wire fraud were also included, along with 4 counts of usage of interstate facilities to promote and facilitate bribery in violation of the Travel Act. Now, Carmelo Garcia is additionally charged with 3 counts of receiving bribes in connection with the business of a federally funded local government and organization, along with Valvano and Soblaski also being additionally charged with 3 counts of offering those same bribes. So, according to the indictment by the U.S. Attorney's Office, from at least 2017 through April of 2019, while serving as a high-level Newark official, and prior to that, as executive officer of the NCEDC, known as Invest Newark, Garcia sought and received significant monetary payments and other benefits from Valvano, Soblaski, and others in exchange for Garcia's use of his official positions and influence to advance real estate development matters of interest to both Valvano and Soblaski. Folks, I know Carmelo Garcia personally. I've known him for quite some time. I knew him even before he was a state assemblyman in the 33rd Legislative District under, State Senator Brian Stack. And throughout our years, my rapport with Carmelo was always a good one. Whenever I worked at other media outlets, I was able to interview him at a moment's notice, and he was always transparent with me. So when I read an indictment that's this egregious, it just makes me wonder, where did he go wrong? And sometimes, folks, when we think about power and how it corrupts absolutely, it just breaks your heart, because I know deep down Carmelo is a good dad. He's a good husband. If you see him on social media, he's always glowing about his children and his wife. But folks, when it comes to these type of positions, it makes it really easy to get wrapped up in potential corruption and greed. And I think that's what got the better of Carmelo Garcia today. Listen, let's let the due process play out. Let's have, he'll have his day in court. We'll see what the U.S. Attorney's Office does with this indictment. But folks, I truly hope that Carmelo Garcia gets the help that he needs, because it sounds like he has a serious problem. And it's one that obviously got him, what many have said, booed off the ticket for State Senator Brian Stack back in the day, when he chose to not have him run anymore and subsequently replaced him with now State Assemblywoman Annette Chaparro. It's a sad story, folks. I'll keep you posted on it right here on the show, but anytime soon, Carmelo, if you're watching this, get some help, man. You really, really need it, and hopefully you can turn your life around. Let's move to Jersey City and the Hudson County Prosecutor's Office, and once again, a thank you to John Hines with Hudson County View for his report on this story. Now, the HCPO is investigating the potential existence of Oath Keeper members in local law enforcement following a comprehensive Gothamist/WNYC report that was published last week. Quote, there are obvious concerns about any members of law enforcement participating in a group such as this. We are investigating this matter, and because it also affects multiple law enforcement agencies across the state, we have reached out to the Attorney General's office for guidance, according to HCPO spokeswoman Jennifer Morrill. Quote, any relevant information we uncover may be shared with the FBI or other law enforcement agencies. Now, a recent story published by The Gothamist explicitly said that hacked records show that Jersey City police officers had ties to the Oath Keepers without getting into specifics. Now, the Anti-Defamation League, which is kind of dubious and questionable in their own right, describes them as, quote, a right-wing anti-government extremist organization who are part of a militia movement which believes that the federal government has been co-opted by a shadowy conspiracy that is trying to strip American citizens of their rights. While several Jersey City officials declined to comment, Ward E Councilman James Solomon expressed some thoughts during a recent news conference when he appeared on Hudson County Live and Uncut, indicating that this was a clear example of where a civilian complaint review board would be helpful. Quote, obviously just the idea that white supremacists are in our police force is horrifying and has to be addressed. And look, I'm sure that the mayor and the Jersey Police Department will address it, but what a CCRB guarantees is transparency, as trusted community leaders who can investigate can also issue a report. The revelation that there may be Oath Keepers in our force is exactly another reason why we need an independent community board to oversee allegations of misconduct for the Jersey City Police Department. Well, folks, let me just give you a little bit of detail here, because the CCRB that the councilman in Ward E is talking about has yet to be resolved at the state level. So it's a little presumptuous of him and other local officials to be sort of trying to advance a CCRB locally when it hasn't even been ratified at the state level. Why hasn't it been? Well, folks, it's an election year, and the last thing that the state legislature wants to do is to look at the implementation of a CCRB, specifically with subpoena power. And why rush that during an election year? Like anything else in Trenton, folks, it tends to be done half-ass, and if it is, it'll be a half-ass bill. Like many, we would prefer that this would be addressed in 2022 when the legislature comes back from its recess. The same thing with the Cannabis Regulatory Commission. Why rush this during an election year? Yeah, you want to score political points with your base and get endorsements, but I would argue this is probably one of the couple of times that I can ever remember where the legislature dragged their feet, and it was actually a good thing. We'll see where this happens, but as it pertains to the Oath Keepers, folks, I think it's much ado about nothing. When you look about the Anti-Defamation League, yes, they're never concerned about left-wing propaganda or left-wing indoctrination or left-wing actors in our major institutions. Isn't it funny, folks, when we talk about white supremacy or institutional racism? Folks, when we think about how institutions are run in this country, our schools, media, I don't know, other, let's say, government agencies, let's be honest, at least in New Jersey, they're all run by the left. They're all run by liberals. So when people want to bitch and moan about institutional racism, well, guess what? Blame the left, because those are the forces that are controlling these institutions. To blame anything on the right or to blame conservatives for this is asinine, because, as I said, when do conservatives have any say in our educational system? When do conservatives have any say in our media institutions here, specifically in New Jersey? Sorry, they're all controlled by the left. And those are the ones you have to blame when we're talking about, institutional racism or white supremacy. Do they exist? I think to some extent, yes. I'm intellectually honest enough to say that. But to go to the extent that it's as on steroids as ridiculous groups like the Anti-Defamation League would claim it to be, it's not, folks. Don't buy into this hysteria. Believe me, the left loves to peddle this nonsense. Just don't buy it. There's enough nonsense to buy. There are people that'll feed into it. Don't be one of them. Lastly, let's return back to the Moscow city of Hoboken, where a frequent critic of Hoboken Mayor Ravi Bala is actually now endorsing him. Once again, thank you to John Hines with the Hudson County View for his report on this story. Now, Hoboken 3rd Ward Councilman Mike Russo is actually backing Mayor Ravi Bala and his council-at-large slate in the upcoming nonpartisan November 2nd municipal elections. Now, a statement put out by the office of the councilman reads as follows, quote, as election day fastly approaches, I'm glad to lend my full support to Mayor Ravi Bala and his council team, Jim Doyle, Joe Quintero, and Emily Jabor. Also, Russo, I mentioned, who had briefly considering challenge the mayor earlier this year, you know what, changed his mind in an email blast published last week. Quote, the pandemic has tested Hoboken residents in ways that we've never experienced in our lifetime. But throughout it all, Mayor Bala, along with his team, and Emily and Jim worked around the clock to ensure that Hoboken shut down the stem to spread the virus, and also a decision that led the rest of the country into taking the pandemic seriously. Part of being an effective leader is working across the community to build consensus for a better Hoboken. I appreciate Councilman Michael Russo's support and recognition of all that we've been able to accomplish together. Now, again, that's a statement put out by the office of Hoboken Mayor Ravi Bala. Now, while the mayor is running unopposed, there are 10 council-at-large candidates seeking 3 seats. And early voting took place last week and is available at City Hall through Halloween coming up on Sunday, October the 31st. Folks, it's very interesting. You know, Mike Russo, nice guy. I've known him. Had a chance to interview him on my podcast in recent years. And he's a gentleman. But you know what? Like anything else, you're trying to survive for your political life. And is this something that's politically expedient for Mike Russo? Probably. Does it put him in the good graces of the mayor? Absolutely. Does it make him look like a sellout to some of his constituents in the ward that he represents? Perhaps. We'll wait and see. But like anything else, folks, when it comes to municipal elections, you know, sometimes it's better to be smart and sometimes it's better to survive. It sounds like that's what Mike Russo is doing right now in the Moscow City. Who would have thought it, folks? You know, just 20 months ago, Hoboken Mayor Ravi Bala looked like a dead duck in the water, but he's bounced back. And of course, a lot of support from Hoboken residents about his handling of COVID have changed their minds. We'll see. Obviously, he'll win by running unopposed, and certainly whether he runs for another term in 2025 remains to be seen.
When you have 3 children who are police officers, you worry about them every day, but you are also proud. Under Mayor Fulop, 70% of new officers in Jersey City have been minorities. Mayor Fulop also upgraded our public safety cameras with over 200 new cameras and body cameras on officers, protecting citizens and police officers. Steve Fulop is my kind of mayor.
And that's our show for this week. To check out all the excellent programming brought to you by the leader in independent media right here in Hudson County, the Hudson Media Group, check out their websites, www.hmgtvshows.com and www.livestream.com/hmgtv. You can also check out the Hudson Media Group on their YouTube and make sure you like them on Facebook, as well as follow them both on Instagram and Twitter. You can check out the 5-time award-winning podcast, Talkin' the Hudson, by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/TalkinTheHudson. Recent guests have included Jersey City Times publisher Aaron Morrill, Tap Into Jersey City columnist Al Sullivan, Hudson County Democratic Organization Chairwoman Amy DeGees, and many more. Again, I bring the exclusives that nobody else is bringing you in Hudson County media. Folks, also check me out on Twitter at NoFilterUribe, and also on my Instagram at Professor Fernando Uribe. Talking the Politics is also available on Instagram as well, so check me out as well at Talking Politics W Fernando Uribe on Instagram. And certainly, folks, make sure you check me out on Facebook as well. And always remember, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always Talking Politics right here with the Hudson Media Group. I'm New Jersey's premier journalist, top 100 Latino for both 2020 and 2021 via the Latino Spirit Online magazine, and of course, the sworn enemy of all the local toxic progressives, the social justice clowns, and the woke fools still permeating throughout Hudson County, Fernando Uribe. Folks, happy Halloween. Enjoy it with your friends and family. And as always, thank you so much for watching.
Don't forget to catch Fernando's podcast at blogtalkradio.com/talkonthehudson. New episodes available every Wednesday night at 9 p.m.